August is hot. In fact, it's blazing hot. Maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not. Maybe it's divine.
The power of August brought us the women's suffrage movement. It brought us the March on Washington. It opened our eyes of the lynching of Emmett Till. It also opened our eyes up of the modern day lynching in Ferguson, Missouri.
Emmett Till's death was a moment. It was a snapshot that galvanized millions of Americans.
We will continue to battle this thing until every man, woman, and child in the United States, when he goes before a court of justice, will get justice.
When Emmett Till was laid out in his casket, his mother insisted that it be an open casket, so she said that people can see what they did to him.
We're part of humanity, and whatever humanity's problems are, they are ours too.
It's a basic American right that a citizen should have a right to an education.
On August 28, 1963, the March on Washington took place.
These expressions make it palpably clear that this is a national issue.
Let us not forget that we are involved in a serious social revolution.
So you just saw a sneak peek of the new CBSN special. It's called The Power of August, and it really explores key civil rights moments in American history this month, the month of August. For more on this, let's bring in Maurice DuBois. He's anchoring the special, so thank you so much for joining us, Maurice. I think the first little clip in what we just rolled sort of says a lot about the month of August. The temperature is hot, but people are hot too. You know, in terms of, you know, people are angry, and we see sort of moment after moment that in August, that frustration and anger bubbles over. So I'm not gonna go way back. I'm just gonna go a few years back. August of 2014, Michael Brown was killed by police. It set off widespread protests. What was the significance of that moment, and how it sort of also plays into the aftermath of what we're seeing now in this summer? George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others who have died at the hands of police.
I know, Anne-Marie, the list goes on and on. First of all, thank you for having me. I have to tell you, I am so proud to be associated with this particular program. It is moving, it's emotional, it's literally the best and worst of times of America over the past 65 years. You talk about the past 6 years, and in 2014 when Michael Brown was killed, and I distinctly remember thinking as the protesters started filling the streets of our cities, New York in particular, as I was here at that time, and then Ferguson, obviously, and cities all around the country, this galvanizing of energy and the birth of the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, that's literally where this started. It started a new generation of protest, of activism, of engagement, of young people being involved in the protest for equality. And it was also, you know, you think about Michael Brown, there was also Eric Garner in Staten Island, New York. There was Trayvon Martin down in Florida. So it was this national awakening to the way that the country has treated black men and black people in particular. And so I think, you know, that worst of times, best of times dichotomy that we talk about, it was the birth of this activism and energy over something so awful and so uniquely American.
Mm-hmm.
Maurice, you know, obviously, because we as a network have been covering the path of destruction left by Hurricane Laura all through the Gulf Coast, leaving thousands without power or running water. You will, of course, remember, as we all do, in August of 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the same area. Remind our viewers what kind of impact this hurricane and this tragedy had on Black Americans at the time, and more importantly, how the government responded.
Yeah, it was another moment when it laid bare the way Black Americans have been treated in this country. You'll remember 1,800 people and more were killed in Katrina, $165 billion in damage. And, you know, you can't prevent a natural disaster. Everybody grasps that. But it was the government response and the way it prepared. And it didn't really prepare, and it didn't really respond to the tragedy at hand. You remember Kanye West, you know, accusing George Bush, the president at the time, of not caring about black people. You remember him saying, Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job despite the struggles that FEMA was having. You'll remember Ray Nagin, the mayor of New Orleans, struggling to even, to take care of his people. So what it did was it laid bare the way America looks at black people, because this was a monster tragedy, and yet all these people were left in a situation of chaos, of despair. I mean, the population of New Orleans diminished by half at the time. It's since come back by about, I think, another quarter. But, it was just, again, I say laid bare, but this happens every few years, right? It lays bare the way America has treated black people, and that was no exception.
There have been bright spots in August 6, 1965. The Voting Rights Act was signed into law. But then in 2013, the Supreme Court struck down a key provision in that law, weakened it essentially, took the teeth out of it. Can we talk a little bit about the significance of that law, what it meant, what this ruling meant for black Americans across the nation?
Yeah, the Voting Rights Act, what a triumphant moment. John Lewis, right? And all the civil rights activists back in the day. The Voting Rights Act required states with a history of voter suppression to get federal permission before they change any voting laws. Well, 7 years ago, the Supreme Court, narrow decision, 5-4, and you remember John Roberts, the Supreme Court Chief Justice at the time, saying that we're past the time when the federal government needs to monitor the states, and so states were then given the ability to change voter laws without federal permission, okay? And so what we've seen, civil rights activists will tell you since then, is a tightening of restrictions on African-American voters and restrictive policies, right? So voter suppression is what they call it, and that's been the result. And so that is key right now in the election and going forward.
Maurice, we talk about the power of August, and like you, I'm so proud to be associated with this special, which is the very first produced documentary from our new Race and Culture unit headed by Alvin Patrick. But, I think that the key point that we should also make is that there have also been triumphant moments in August, and Anne-Marie alluded to one of them, and we talk about that in the special as well.
Yeah, the Voting Rights Act, a high point. And in your piece, Vlad, which was beautifully done, by the way, seriously, kudos to you on that piece. So Emmett Till, 1955, the murder, it spawns the civil rights movement, right? You had Rosa Parks inspired to sit on the bus, in the front of the bus, and then the Montgomery bus boycott, and Martin Luther King, and then the March on Washington, probably one of the greatest moments in American civil rights history, and the speech by Dr. King, just really one of the main, one of the mountaintops in American history. And then the election of Barack Obama in 2008, that showed black Americans' voting power. When you think about the turnout of African Americans for the Obama elections, right? It was 65% in 2008, 66% in 2012. And then in 2016, African-American voter turnout was down to 59.5% or so. And so you saw the result of that. And so you look at the election landscape right now, right? Kamala Harris is on the ticket with Joe Biden. There's no accident there, right? The qualifications aside, but African-American, trying to get African-Americans excited about the vote. And then you saw the Republican convention. You saw a whole lot of African-Americans speaking, trying to reach out to this key voting bloc. There's a margin there that's going to make the difference in November. So what you're hearing from civil rights activists is register and vote and do it early and get it done.
That is a very strong message, Maurice. And I always think, when I think about the brutalization, the brutal killing of Emmett Till, and then I think when Rosa Parks was asked why she decided to sit in the front of the bus, she said, I was thinking about Emmett Till. Maurice DuBois, thank you, my friend, very, very much. Yeah. It's really great to have you with us.
Thank you, guys.
The Power of August is an hour-long special looking back at the transformational moments in American civil rights history. It will premiere tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern and will air again at 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. right here on CBSN. And to learn more about the depth and the differences in the African-American and American experience, the totality of who we are as a country, you can visit cbsnews.com/CBSVillage, where we report on a range of issues impacting diverse communities across the nation.